People who were born deaf but gained hearing later in life, what objects did you expect to make noise? Seems like everyone is answering the reverse. My friend got his hearing at age 6. He swears to this day that he thought flowers would make some sort of noise and that's what attracted bees. Not me. My good friend who's hard of hearing told me about how before he got hearing aids, he thought that all fridges made a beeping sound, like an alarm, when you open them so the house knows when you're getting something. Turns out his mom just told him that to stop him from eating all their snacks. This is awesome lol. Parenting hack FTW. At least until the kids got hearing aids. To be fair, my Samsung fridge does have an alarm and it beeps loudly if left open for more than a minute. My fridge does this too. Unsure of the kind at the moment, but I like that it does that up until I go to put groceries away and it just beeps at me until I finish. Obligatory not me, but my godfather dad's lifelong best friend. He was born with hearing but lost it before age 2 due to some health issues. When his entire childhood deaf and in his 20s finally got a hearing aid. At the time, he and his wife were living in the downtown of a large city. Apparently he had it about 2 weeks before he threw it out, saying everything was too loud, he hated the noise and sound, that things were more peaceful without it. 15 years later, he moved out into the country on a few hundred acres of woods. Still, he refused to wear a hearing aid, and kept refusing for the next 10 years. Finally, his wife convinced him to give it a try, and his mind was blown. He couldn't believe how quiet everything was and how much he enjoyed hearing. He finally explained that he thought the noise of the traffic downtown was the wind and that it sounded like that everywhere, all the time. So, for 25+ years, he thought wind sounded like the hundreds of cars driving by. I too wish if I can just turn off my hearing and relax a ducking day without noise. Earplugs are real and they are fabulous. Yeah, I know, but I have tinnitus and it makes me go crazy. Put your palms on your ears and thump the soft spot in the back of your head with your fingers. Should resonate and feel like your head is the inside of a drum. 15 to 30 seconds. Makes tinnitus go away for a while for most people. Sometimes mine goes away for the rest of the day. Holy duck dude, it went away, I cannot thank you enough. Excellent. I hope it gives you many hours of peace. Dude. Thank you. The wisdom really is in the comments. Suspicious, but willing to give it a try, he tapped on the back of his head with a sigh. He tapped and he crossed all his fingers for luck. He waited a moment. He said, "Holy duck." My 3-year-old son is deaf, and we just had a visit this morning from his signing teacher who is also deaf herself. She recently had cochlear implants fitted, and while we were talking signing she said, "I'm sorry, I can't concentrate, I can hear a horrible constant noise, it's not stopped the whole time I've been here." Turned out it was the rain on my conservatory roof. Ironically, one of the most pleasant sounds there is. My cousin was born deaf and went through an operation to recover part of his hearing when he was 12. He sometimes uses hearing aids but can get by without them in general. His family had a bunny, Tupu. Of course he had learned about cows mooing, cats meowing, etc. before he had his surgery. He was very shocked when he came home and greeted his bunny that it made no sound. It took the longest time for him to understand that bunnies are pretty quiet animals in general. He explained he thought all pets were loud. Honestly, I'm hearing and have a hard time with the sounds of rodents and logomorphs. They're usually not audible to us when they make noise because it's so high-pitched. When I can hear them, it's so high that it just doesn't quite sound real. Exceptions for things like guinea pigs that weak in a pretty noticeable way. I assumed you made up the word weak. Google didn't even want to let me search for it. Best thing I've learned today. I think they meant it as onomatopoeia. Guinea pigs literally make a noise that sounds like weak weak weak. Like tiny hungry pigs. It's pretty cute actually. My old roommate in NYC got implants at, I think he was 25 or 26. He was shocked that the radiators in the house didn't make noise. He could feel them, and was absolutely sure, given their shaking and vibrating from time to time, that they were going to be quite noisy. On the flip side, he was deeply annoyed by the buzz of fluorescent lighting, which he did not expect to make noise. On the flip side, he was deeply annoyed by the buzz of fluorescent lighting, which he did not expect to make noise. This and old CRT TVs. I have really good high-range hearing, and the old CRT straight up hurt my ears. Yup. There was a CRT in my homeroom for school back in the day that the teacher would turn on for morning announcements. But it would take a few seconds to actually come alive. Got to the point that when I turned my head to look up at it, everyone else would too. They always asked how I knew and I always told them I could hear it. Can hear the same. Our old TV used to drive me crazy as a kid when it was on but no sound was coming out of it. Anybody remember the old shitty USB charging wall warts that were noisy as duck? None of my friends could hear it, so I had to prove it one day by looking away and having my friend plug and unplug it, and he was shocked I could tell exactly when it was plugged in or not. Edit, my most upvoted comment ever. Thank you all. Also not dirty power because I run LED lights in my house on dimmers and have put in AC filters because otherwise I fucking hear them and their effect on other things down the line. Funny how a regular old bulb will clean up noise and a LED, especially a cheap one, will inject so much noise it's not even funny. I have one of those. My daughter uses it to charge her tablet. I can hear its high-pitched whine when nothing is plugged into it, but my wife and daughter don't notice it. I always go unplug it when I'm in the same room with it and it's not charging anything. My girlfriend is not deaf, but she is hard of hearing, which for her means that she can't hear high-frequency sounds. She recently got hearing aids that amplify the frequencies she can't hear and was shocked to find out that birds and crickets chirp, to the point that she thought the birds were trying to attack her and was horrified that we were surrounded by millions of bugs when I explained what the crickets were. Not me, but when I was in high school a bunch of kids would meet in a nearby no man's land and hang out before school started. I spent most of my mornings, loudly, talking to my almost deaf friend. One day he showed up and said he had a new hearing aid. I didn't have to yell at him to get him to hear me anymore, yay. Few minutes later he asked what that noise was. I asked which noise, listening and hearing nothing out of the ordinary. I don't know, it's like a weird beeping, almost musical, really bizarre but actually kind of pleasing. Took me a minute to realize my man was hearing birdsong for the first time in his life. Was a pretty cool moment. Edit, I now realize this is maybe the opposite of what was being asked. I was born with tons of fluid in my ears and only had very slight hearing at best. When I was 6 months old, I had a surgery that put tubes in my ears to drain the fluid. My mom says when I came home from surgery, I went to my toy box and shook every toy in it to see what sounds they made. Honestly, it wasn't that serious but did lead to some auditory processing issues and I had to see a speech therapist until I was 7. Crazy what a difference 6 months of hearing makes that early on. 2 of my siblings had to get tubes in their ears at a young age. My brother had to see a speech therapist. As kids I had to do a lot of the speaking and translating for him, but now he in his 30s and only speaks with a small impediment. My kids are about a year and a half apart. My youngest has some very minor speech issues for which he is in speech therapy. When the youngest was about 3 and the oldest 4.5, my oldest would translate for us all the time. She just knew what he was saying all the time, even though we had a hard time understanding him. If he was having a particularly tough time asking for what he wanted, he would go get her to help. Sometimes she seemed exasperated for being asked one more time, but she truly made that year so much less frustrating for everyone. Yeah, the brother I'm talking about is just over 2 years older than me. So it was kind of the opposite in terms of age, but it made everyone's lives so much easier. I also credit that with part of why he and I are so close even now. I had a child friend that gained hearing and she didn't realize you could control the volume of your voice. So when I whispered to her, she said, "Hang on, I think I need to adjust my hearing aid." At first I just thought, oh, it mustn't be working, until I realized what was going on. She whispered to me for about 2 weeks solid just to practice, yes, she also practiced shouting, but we did that in secluded woodlands. That should be like the beginning of a cute but sad movie. Pixar has entered the chat.